Translation of Sahih Bukhari, Book 6. Menstrual Periods. Volume 1, Book 6, number 293. Narrated Al-Qasim. Aisha said, "We set out with the sole intention of performing Hajj, and when we reached Sarif, a place 6 miles from Mecca, I got my menses. Allah's Apostle came to me while I was weeping. He said, 'What is the matter with you? Have you got your menses?' I replied, 'Yes.' He said, 'This is a thing which Allah has ordained for the daughters of Adam. So do what all the pilgrims do with the exception of the tawaf, that is circumambulation round the Kaaba.'" Aisha added, "Allah's Apostle sacrificed cows on behalf of his wives." Number 294. Narrated Aisha. "While in menses, I used to comb the hair of Allah's Apostle." Number 295. Narrated Urwa. "A person asked me, 'Can a woman in menses serve me? And can a junub woman come close to me?' I replied, 'All this is easy for me. All of them can serve me, and there is no harm for any other person to do the same.'" Aisha told me that she used to comb the hair of Allah's Apostle while she was in her menses, and he was in itikaf in the mosque. He would bring his head near her in her room and she would comb his hair, while she used to be in her menses. Number 296. Narrated Aisha. "The Prophet used to lean on my lap and recite Quran while I was in menses." Number 297. Narrated Salama. "While I was lying with the Prophet under a single woolen sheet, I got the menses. I slipped away and put on the clothes for menses. He said, 'Have you got nifas, menses?' I replied, 'Yes.' He then called me and made me lie with him under the same sheet." Number 298. Narrated Aisha. "The Prophet and I used to take a bath from a single pot while we were junub. During the menses, he used to order me to put on an izar, dress worn below the waist, and used to fondle me. While in itikaf, he used to bring his head near me and I would wash it while I used to be in my periods, menses." Number 299. Narrated Abdurrahman bin al-Aswad. On the authority of his father, Aisha said, "Whenever Allah's Apostle wanted to fondle any one of us during her periods, menses, he used to order her to put on an izar and start fondling her." Aisha added, "None of you could control his sexual desires as the Prophet could." Number 300. Narrated Maimuna. Whenever Allah's Apostle wanted to fondle any of his wives during the periods, menses, he used to ask her to wear an izar. Number 301. Narrated Abu Said al-Khudri. Once Allah's Apostle went out to the Musalla to offer the prayer Eid al-Adha or al-Fitr prayer. Then he passed by the women and said, "O women, give alms, as I have seen that the majority of the dwellers of hellfire were you women." They asked, "Why is it so, O Allah's Apostle?" He replied, "You curse frequently and are ungrateful to your husbands. I have not seen anyone more deficient in intelligence and religion than you. A cautious sensible man could be led astray by some of you." The women asked, "O Allah's Apostle, what is deficient in our intelligence and religion?" He said, "Is not the evidence of 2 women equal to the witness of 1 man?" They replied in the affirmative. He said, "This is the deficiency in her intelligence. Isn't it true that a woman can neither pray nor fast during her menses?" The women replied in the affirmative. He said, "This is the deficiency in her religion." Number 302. Narrated Aisha. "We set out with the Prophet for Hajj, and when we reached Sarif I got my menses. When the Prophet came to me, I was weeping. He asked, 'Why are you weeping?' I said, 'I wish if I had not performed Hajj this year.' He asked, 'May be that you got your menses?' I replied, 'Yes.' He then said, 'This is the thing which Allah has ordained for all the daughters of Adam. So do what all the pilgrims do except that you do not perform the tawaf round the Kaaba till you are clean." Number 303. Narrated Aisha. Fatima bint Abi Hubaysh said to Allah's Apostle, "O Allah's Apostle, I do not become clean from bleeding, shall I give up my prayers?" Allah's Apostle replied, "No, because it is from a blood vessel and not the menses." So when the real menses begins, give up your prayers, and when the period has finished, wash the blood off your body, take a bath, and offer your prayers. Number 304. Narrated Asma bint Abi Bakr. A woman asked Allah's Apostle, "O Allah's Apostle, what should we do if the blood of menses falls on our clothes?" Allah's Apostle replied, "If the blood of menses falls on the garment of any one of you, she must take hold of the blood spot, rub it, and wash it with water, and then pray in with it." Number 305. Narrated Aisha. Whenever any one of us got her menses, she, on becoming clean, used to take hold of the blood spot and rub the blood off her garment, and pour water over it and wash that portion thoroughly and sprinkle water over the rest of the garment. After that she would pray in with it. Number 306. Narrated Aisha. Once one of the wives of the Prophet did itikaf along with him, and she was getting bleeding in between her periods. She used to see the blood from her private parts, and she would perhaps put a dish under her for the blood. The sub-narrator Ikrimah added, Aisha once saw the liquid of safflower and said, "It looks like what so-and-so used to have." Number 307. Narrated Aisha. One of the wives of Allah's Apostle joined him in itikaf, and she noticed blood and yellowish discharge from her private parts and put a dish under her when she prayed. Number 308. Narrated Aisha. One of the mothers of the faithful believers, that is the wives of the Prophet, did itikaf while she was having bleeding in between her periods. Number 309. Narrated Aisha. None of us had more than a single garment, and we used to have our menses while wearing it. Whenever it got soiled with blood of menses, we used to apply saliva to the blood spot and rub off the blood with our nails. Number 310. Narrated Umatiyah. We were forbidden to mourn for a dead person for more than 3 days, except in the case of a husband for whom mourning was allowed for 4 months and 10 days. During that time we were not allowed to put coal, antimony powder in our eyes, or to use perfumes, or to put on colored clothes except a dress made of ezab, a kind of Yemen cloth, very coarse and rough. We were allowed very light perfumes at the time of taking a bath after menses, and also we were forbidden to go with the funeral procession. Number 311. Narrated Aisha. A woman asked the Prophet about the bath which is take after finishing from the menses. The Prophet told her what to do and said, "Purify yourself with a piece of cloth scented with musk." The woman asked, "How shall I purify myself with it?" He said, "Subhanallah. Purify yourself with it." I pulled her to myself and said, "Rub the place soiled with blood with it." Number 312. Narrated Aisha. An Ansari woman asked the Prophet how to take a bath after finishing from the menses. He replied, "Take a piece of cloth perfumed with musk and clean the private parts with it thrice." The Prophet felt shy and turned his face. So pulled her to me and told her what the Prophet meant. Number 313. Narrated Aisha. In the last Hajj of Allah's Apostle, I assumed the ihram for Hajj along with Allah's Apostle. I was one of those who intended tamattu to perform Hajj and Umrah and did not take the hadi, animal for sacrifice, with me. I got my menses and was not clean till the night of Arafah. I said, "O Allah's Apostle, it is the night of the day of Arafat, and I intended to perform the Hajj tamattu with Umrah." Allah's Apostle told me to undo my hair and comb it and to postpone the Umrah. I did the same and completed the Hajj. On the night of Al-Hasba, that is place outside Mecca where the pilgrims go after finishing all the ceremonies Hajj at Mina, the Prophet ordered Abdurrahman, Aisha's brother, to take me to At-Tayyim to assume the ihram for Umrah in lieu of that of Hajj at Tamattu which I had intended to perform. Number 314. Narrated Aisha. On the 1st of Dhul-Hijjah we set out with the intention of performing Hajj. Allah's Apostle said, "Anyone who likes to assume the ihram for Umrah, he can do so." Had I not brought the hadi with me, I would have assumed the ihram for Umrah. Some of us assumed the ihram for Umrah while the others assumed the ihram for Hajj. I was one of those who assumed the ihram for Umrah. I got menses and kept on menstruating until the day of Arafat and complained of that to the Prophet. He told me to postpone my Umrah, undo and comb my hair, and to assure the ihram of Hajj, and I did so. On the rite of Hasba, he sent my brother Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr with me to At-Tahiyyum, where I assumed the ihram for Umrah in lieu of the previous one. Hisham said, for that Umrah no hadi, fasting or alms were required. Number 315. Narrated Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, at every womb Allah appoints an angel who says, O Lord. A drop of semen, O Lord. A clot, O Lord. A little lump of flesh. Then if Allah wishes to complete its creation, the angel asks, O Lord. Will it be a male or female, a wretched or a blessed, and how much will his provision be? And what will his age be? So all that is written while the child is still in the mother's womb. Number 316. Narrated Urwa. Aisha said, we set out with the Prophet in his last Hajj. Some of us intended to perform Umrah while others Hajj. When we reached Mecca, Allah's Apostle said, those who had assumed the ihram for Umrah and had not brought the hadi should finish his ihram, and whoever had assumed the ihram for Umrah and brought the hadi should not finish the ihram till he has slaughtered his hadi, and whoever had assumed the ihram for Hajj should complete his Hajj. Aisha further said, I got my periods menses and kept on menstruating till the day of Arafat, and I had assumed the ihram for Umrah only tamattu. The Prophet ordered me to undo and comb my head hair and assume the ihram for Hajj only and leave the Umrah. I did the same till I completed the Hajj. Then the Prophet sent Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr with me and ordered me to perform Umrah from At-Tahiyyum in lieu of the missed Umrah. Number 317. Narrated Aisha. Fatima bint Abi Hubaysh used to have bleeding in between the periods, so she asked the Prophet about it. He replied, the bleeding is from a blood vessel and not the menses. So give up the prayers when the real menses begin, and when it has finished, take a bath and start praying. Number 318. Narrated Mu'adha. A woman asked Aisha, should I offer the prayers that which I did not offer because of menses? Aisha said, are you from the Hura, a town in Iraq? We were with the Prophet and used to get our periods, but he never ordered us to offer them the prayers missed during menses. Aisha perhaps said, we did not offer them. Number 319. Narrated Zainab bint Abi Salama. Salama said, I got my menses while I was lying with the Prophet under a woolen sheet. So I slipped away, took the clothes for menses and put them on. Allah's Apostle said, have you got your menses? I replied, yes. Then he called me and took me with him under the woolen sheet. Salama further said, the Prophet used to kiss me while he was fasting. The Prophet and I used to take the bath of janaba from a single pot. Number 320. Narrated Salama. While I was lying with the Prophet under a woolen sheet, I got my menses. I slipped away and put on the clothes for menses. The Prophet said, have you got your menses? I replied, yes. He called me and I slept with him under the woolen sheet. Number 321. Narrated Ayub. Hafsa said, we used to forbid our young women to go out for the two Eid prayers. A woman came and stayed at the palace of Bani Khalaf, and she narrated about her sister whose husband took part in 12 holy battles along with the Prophet, and her sister was with her husband in 6 out of these 12. She, the woman's sister, said, we used to treat the wounded, look after the patients, and once I asked the Prophet, is there any harm for any of us to stay at home if she doesn't have a veil? He said, she should cover herself with the veil of her companion and should participate in the good deeds and in the religious gathering of the Muslims. When Umayyah came, I asked her whether she had heard it from the Prophet. She replied, yes. May my father be sacrificed for him, the Prophet. Whenever she mentioned the Prophet, she used to say, may my father be sacrificed for him. I have heard the Prophet saying, the unmarried young virgins and the mature girl who stay often screened, or the young unmarried virgins who often stay screened, and the menstruating women should come out and participate in the good deeds as well as the religious gathering of the faithful believers, but the menstruating women should keep away from the musalla, praying place. Hafsa asked Umayyah surprisingly, do you say the menstruating women? She replied, doesn't a menstruating woman attend Arafat, Hajj and such other deeds? Number 322. Narrated Aisha. Fatima bint Abi Hubaysh asked the Prophet, I got persistent bleeding in between the periods and do not become clean. "Shall I give up prayers?" He replied, "No, this is from a blood vessel. Give up the prayers only for the days on which you usually get the menses and then take a bath and offer your prayers." Number 323. Narrated Umatiyah. We never considered yellowish discharge as a thing of importance as menses. Number 324. Narrated Aisha. The wife of the Prophet, Habiba, got bleeding in between the periods for 7 years. She asked Allah's Apostle about it. He ordered her to take a bath after the termination of actual periods and added that it was from a blood vessel. So she used to take a bath for every prayer. Number 325. Narrated Aisha. The wife of the Prophet, I told Allah's Apostle that Safiya bint Huyay had got her menses. He said, "She will probably delay us." Did she perform Tawaf al-Ifadah with you? We replied, "Yes." On that the Prophet told her to depart. Number 326. Narrated Ibn Abbas. A woman is allowed to go back home if she gets menses after Tawaf al-Ifadah. Ibn Umar formerly used to say that she should not leave, but later on I heard him saying, she may leave, since Allah's Apostle gave them the permission to leave after Tawaf al-Ifadah. Number 327. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet said to me, "Give up the prayer when your menses begin, and when it has finished, wash the blood off your body, take a bath and start praying." Number 328. Narrated Samura bin Jundab. The Prophet offered the funeral prayer for the dead body of a woman who died of during delivery, that is childbirth, and he stood by the middle of her body. Number 329. Narrated Maimuna. The wife of the Prophet, during my menses, I never prayed, but used to sit on the mat beside the mosque of Allah's Apostle. He used to offer the prayer on a sheet, and in prostration some of his clothes used to touch me.